Ed, thank you. Ed Henry, Fox News Chief White House Correspondent. Joining us now, author, columnist Jedediah Avila, former White House Special Assistant, Senior Advisor to President Bill Clinton, Richard Socarides, and Weekly Standard's Executive Editor, Fox News contributor Fred Barnes. Thank you all for being here. And Richard, let me start with you. This has crossed a red line, and now we hear a drumbeat. And we're talking about 100 to 150 deaths, apparently, over the course of 12 months. Why is this a red line for this administration, given there are 93,000 people who've been killed there?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very complicated situation, as all of these situations are, and I think the president wants to be helpful, but it is a situation where it's difficult to know exactly who's on what side, and we want to make sure that we're helping the right people. So I think it's been complicated, and I think it will continue to be. The administration will continue to evaluate it and balance our interests there as we go along.
We still don't know who we're assisting, though, in the process. I mean, I'm really opposed to assisting anyone until we're sure of who these people are, what they stand for, who we're arming. That question still can't be answered. And I think it's interesting that now all of a sudden the red line he said before doesn't count anymore. Oh, I said this already, that red line? I didn't mean it. This time I'm really serious about it. What makes that situation different from now? I cannot answer that question for you, and I don't think most of America can.
Fred Barnes, this red line, it has been if the president is allowed to decide where that red line is and how it is crossed, this is the crossing, and now he's going to go to the G8 with a discussion rather than action on Syria. What do you make of it?
I make that that he is kind of a wuss, as Bill Clinton says. Look, I mean, this worry about who are going to aid there and who not, there are things that President Obama can do almost immediately that will curtail dramatically the massacre of Syrian civilians. And one thing, as John McCain and Lindsey Graham and others have urged over and over again, and that is to establish a no-fly zone and have an area where a safe zone where Syrians, and some of them may be Al-Qaeda, where they're safe to shoot down into the Syrian planes, which have been killing hundreds and hundreds of Syrians.
Well, I'm confused, Fred. I'm sorry, but I mean, don't the French, don't the Saudis, don't they have jet fighters? Why does this have to be a U.S. initiative? What is our specific interest in Syria?
Well, there's a huge interest. You know, it may show up in polls that people don't want to get involved in a civil war. This is not just a civil war. You have the Russians involved. You have the Iranians involved. You have Hezbollah involved.
I'm getting more excited by the minute. If we get to go into a conflict with Russia, now you've got my interest.
No, we're not going to. Well, look, do we just sit by while Russia expands, sends weapons of all types to Syrians as they're killing people, as they're a threat to their neighbors? And the bottom line is, this would be a tremendous setback for the United States if Assad stays, and a tremendous victory for Iran.
Okay, and I accede to all of that. Let's say hypothetically, the fact is that we have been in Afghanistan since 2001. We have been in Iraq. It seems for a decade. We are not doing very well there. When is there going to be a straightforward discussion of the limitations of massive power? When is there going to be a discussion about the appropriate attention? Why do we as a nation have a leader who constructs a red line based on the use of chemical weapons, comes back with a full report that 100 to 150 people have died over the course of 12 months, which we don't even know. We have no evidence of it that we can observe. And why don't we draw red lines how about at 80,000 Syrians dead? How about at 90,000 Syrians dead? Why can't this country's leadership make sense, Richard?
Lou, I mean, I think much of what you said up until your discussion of this red line concept could be articulated in support of the president's position. I mean, I think the president.
I really don't care about supporting the president's position. I don't care about. No, please. Richard, I want you to address the national interest. This is about time we started making sense. Our leadership is not making sense. You've got a 72-year-old Republican senator running around.
It is a very complicated world.
It is a complicated world, and I'm asking you to start thinking about it instead of talking about silly red lines.
While we would all like for things to be clearer and for these international conflicts to be simpler, they are not, and they do not lend themselves to simple solutions. So yours is a good idea. We should all try for that. And I think the president's comments recently about where we should go going forward on the war of terror,
so common sense
was an effort to try to do that.
Common sense and the national interest then are appropriate aspirationally, but for God's sake, please don't get involved.
We ought to try to do them, but we live in a very complicated world where you can't always tell who's on what side.
Because Richard has found a complicated world out there I didn't know existed. Did you, Jenna?
The rest of us want to know what the long-term objective is.
Fred Barnes, thank you. We're out of time. We appreciate it. Coming up next,